podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Well, after a tumultuous week of football activities, we probably all needed a nice, unbelievably dull 0-0 draw to settle the nerves ahead of, semi-final, Liverpool semi-final.
There's more excitement to come. Yeah, it was pretty dull. I wasted a couple hours of my life on that and then followed that up with City versus Spurs, which was equally dull.
Yeah, my plan was... Right, we set the record. It's 8:45 in the UK right now. So the game was finished hours ago. My plan was finish the game, watch match of the day, watch the Carling Cup final to talk to Carling. It's not anyway.
Showing your age there.
Watch the Rumbelows Cup final. Cup. Yeah, exactly. And then do the show and do the backers content. But I just got in a complete strop with football during this game and went out instead. Because the thing is, it would have been fine, but the sun was shining. And it's been a long, cold, lonely winter in the UK. And so having the sun out and watching that was really offensive.
Talking of really offensive, the most entertaining part of this game was Harry Maguire telling Fred that he's a idiot. 72 minutes in, United's best shot on target, that one.
Rashford's free kick just before half-time was nice.
4 shots on target we had in this game. It was lacking in creativity, you could say.
Honestly, United are not always good when Paul Pogba plays, but they are always bad when Paul Pogba does not play. So, there's a significant correlation there. Duncan Castle's at pain to point out that Ole started with a back six and United only had 4 shots on target because there's something wrong with him.
4 shots on target. I mean, a lot of shots. I mean, it's not like United weren't having shots; they just weren't high quality efforts.
They were just getting blocked, right? Leeds, friend of the show, Andrew Yaxley, pointed out that actually this was very, very, very good defending from Leeds. Like, they defended tigerishly as a unit. Then United had no time or space on the ball. They stifled the kind of key creative outlets, and they couldn't. And United's attacking players couldn't create those moments of magic you need. I thought Solskjaer, as basically always, he gave Pogba 15 minutes, and it's Ramadan, and Pogba's been fasting, and there's a semi-final on Thursday, but it felt kind of strange that did. And especially the semi-final on Thursday thing doesn't really make sense when Rashford played 85 minutes and Bruno played 90 whatever or 89, and then
the subs again were really frustrating, weren't they?
So weird.
77 minutes, 87 minutes, and 90 minutes. I mean, I guess what we're really talking about is like Solskjaer is prioritising Thursday.
Yeah,
which you can understand because United have a nice cushion over Leicester, and if they were going to rotate in one of the games coming up, I guess this is the one to do it in. So fair enough, and we complain a lot about not rotating. It's just so fine. Pogba gets a rest, and he's been important recently, but Bruno doesn't get a rest. Was a bit odd.
Just the whole thing's very odd. The Cavani coming on in the 87th minute. Statistically, what's the difference between Cavani coming on in the 87th minute and not coming on at all? It's got to be relatively small. Not that he couldn't do something in the 6 minutes or whatever that he got, but if you brought him on, and people were all saying they're saving him for Thursday, and give him 20 minutes. I know I refer to this all the time, and I wish I could find the source of it, but I've heard Ole Gunnar Solskjaer say, as a substitute, I always felt you needed 20 minutes to make an impact on a game. It's he's completely forgotten that. The Van der Beek one is just insulting. Why do you bring... why would you bring Bruno off and Van der Beek on in the 90th minute? What are you trying to achieve? Are you wasting the 30 seconds or whatever, wasting the time when only 30 seconds gets added on for a sub, but to get a 0-0 draw against Leeds? Anyway, it was just weird. It's not having a big strop about it because it's fine, right? None of it matters.
No, at all. So United have scored 10 goals from substitutes this season, and more goals than anyone else, 48, I think it is, from in the second half of games, right? So that would tell you that Solskjaer's getting his subs right, and that's a pretty good evidence. And a lot of those, Cavani, of course, who's come off the bench to good effect. But this was also evidence of Ollie doing what he does most of the time, which is fairly conservative substitutions. Anyway, this is a bit nitpicky in a game that has taken on less importance.
Yeah,
with 5 games to go, nice cushion, a very nice cushion over 5th place. United probably only need one more win in order to qualify for next season's Super Champions Mega League.
Yeah, Florentino Perez said this week, maybe we got the format wrong. Maybe the top 4 teams from the top leagues should qualify. I think there's something wrong with him. More on that later. It's worth saying at this point that Aston Villa have unfortunately only drawn, or just about to finish their game where they've only drawn with West Brom, which is a real shame, because if they'd won it, Arsenal would be 11th, which is just really enjoyable. While we're talking about United, being fed up about a slightly boring game where United kind of didn't win after a bunch of wins on the bounce. I don't know. It's fine, and the unbeaten run in the league, away from home rather, goes on and on and on and on, which is marvellous. I suspect we probably would have won this game if we'd only gone 1-0 down early. We probably would have fought back and won it.
Well, look, Leeds did what they didn't do in the game at Old Trafford and narrow the pitch down. Johan Cruyff used to say you want to make the pitch as big as you can when you're attacking and as small as you can when you're defending. And Leeds didn't do that. They allowed United to stretch the game and find passes in between the lines in that game at Old Trafford. And Leeds were just gung-ho throughout, and they did the opposite here. And we've seen that side of Leeds this season, actually. Mm-hmm. When they want to defend, they can defend. Mm-hmm. And so they did that very well. They didn't create anything as a result. I guess they were prioritising getting something out of this game, which I guess you can kind of understand after what happened at Old Trafford. And so they did.
Yeah. And they played very well individually, Leeds did, defensively. There was no lapses of concentration, no running out of energy. United didn't stop trying, and there was lots of moments of defensive quality from United as well, individual blocks and tackles. Only one moment where Victor Lindelof passed the ball out to a Leeds player under absolutely no pressure for no reason whatsoever, but can't have everything. Leeds didn't get in behind Maguire and Lindelof too often, just one that I can think of where they really threatened to turn them. Whatever. It was 2 hours of our lives. It happened. Had some brief hope when Pogba came on, but literally everyone who isn't related to one of these players would have had a better afternoon if they hadn't watched the game. But it's fine. Sometimes football is pointless and makes you question the purpose of existence, and sometimes it's great. So that's the risk you run, right?
Well, that's it. If everything was guaranteed and there was no competition to see who won and lost, it'd be very boring, wouldn't it?
It'd be the Super League. What I need is 6 to 7 minute highlight packages of high level football. Clearly,
like children today just don't like long games like this. They just need it compressed, don't they? It's like when we were kids and they had NFL highlights. And I always thought, having seen only NFL highlights and not having actually watched the whole game for many, many years of my life, that NFL was quite exciting until I sat through 4 hours of absolute turgid someone throwing a ball now and again, but hardly ever.
But this was 2 hours of absolutely turgid stuff of people passing a ball now and then, but mostly not successfully. I know the quality of execution in attacking. I mean, I'm trying not to be too reactive or too miserabilist. As you may be able to tell, I did feel a distinct lack of enthusiasm, which I do think is partly because, like, oh, great, Man United are playing. Man United, the club that were instrumentally involved in trying to destroy football as we know it. Well, just this time a week ago, like. I know, slightly re-energized by all the protests and, the very clear sense that the club doesn't really belong to the people that the club belongs to, as it were. That sort of works both ways. But yeah, it was a tough watch, and there was some good defending, but there was some really sloppy passing, and it did feel. Hopefully, this is before the Lord Mayor's show, and the team are really gearing up for the big triple header over the next week.
Yes, and I guess we'll come to Roma in a little bit, but the makeup of that attacking unit, the midfield unit, is going to be pretty crucial, isn't it? Just the difference between Pogba being in the midfield too, or left side of the three up front, and us having McFred in the side is night and day in terms of creativity. And we often get. I mean, United had drawn 10 Premier League games this season, and I think I read a stat that across all competitions we've had 7 0-0 draws. So it's there is this tendency. At the same time, 64 goals, second only to City, juiced a little bit by that 9 against Southampton, of course,
and 6 against Leeds,
yeah, it does bend the stats somewhat.
Yeah. But they happened.
And 64 goals is a good return.
It's so weird, man. This season's one of the weirdest seasons ever. Sort of fitting that all the Super League stuff happened in the middle of this season, because no fans makes it weird anyway. Because, when the football's bad, you can always sort of distract yourself thinking about what's going on in the stands. And when you're in the stands, it doesn't matter whether the football's bad or not, basically. Except for, the doldrum days of the Louis van Gaal era. It got a bit much even for people in the stands. But basically, going to the football is always good. So without that, United are second. I mean, it hasn't happened yet, but they've got a reasonably good chance of winning European silverware in a semi-final. And yet, it's so hard to know. It just does not feel like it's been a good season. It hasn't felt good for most of it. There's been plenty of feel-good moments, and that's been kind of sustaining after, certainly like compared to Mourinho times or whatever. But yeah, it's I just cannot wait for the season to be done. I cannot wait not to have to watch Man United for a few weeks,
Yeah, and then we can have an endless summer of transfer speculation. So I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. September the 2nd, United will have signed no one of any consequence, okay? That's it. Just, leave, save your summer, enjoy your summer, go sit on the beach, don't read the back papers. Anyway, I haven't got anything else to say about this game.
Me neither.
Shall we talk about the ongoing saga of the Super League, and then we can preview Roma and Liverpool?
Well, I have it on good authority, right? Don't know if you know this, Ed, but Ed Woodward, right, turns out the reason he's leaving his job as Man United CEO, cushy, extremely well paid, very high profile, very ego-soothing job that he's had for a long time, it's because he's so committed to the football pyramid. He couldn't bear to be a part of this betrayal of football as we know it. Now, you might argue that that's a very interesting position to take for someone whose resignation only came out after the whole thing had collapsed, or someone who maybe was instrumentally responsible in heaping hundreds of millions of pounds of debt onto one of English football's most precious institutions, and has overseen a calamitous collapse from, a powerhouse of English football to also Rans, in whose leaving statement it pointed out that £1 billion had been spent on his watch, and he had overseen the victories in one League Cup, one FA Cup, and one Europa League. Hell of a return on investment. The credulity of his, not just the picks, because this is, we'll have a big conversation about this. Sorry, it's very ranty, but the Neil Ashton stuff is absolutely disgusting. Like, we don't know this is happening, but this is fake news. This is a well-placed, behind-the-scenes network of journalists unquestioningly pumping out the same line, but also his actual real-life friends, who I'm fairly convinced he's lying to their face about why he's left, and then they're repeating the lie, and then nobody actually believes any of it, because nothing about that tallies up with a single thing that any of us know whatsoever about this individual. Like, this is cowardice of the highest order, and it's so slimy, Ed. It's so slimy.
It's awful, isn't it? Yeah. So his acolytes, is that the right word?
Well, Ashton's acolytes. Oh, yeah.
Ashton's acolytes, yeah. Have been supporting him. It doesn't pass the sniff test, does it? So, at all. This is not true. Ed Woodward did not resign because he's regularly seen in the terraces at the Peninsula watching Salford, because he really cares about lower league football, and he's manning the barricades with Gary Neville. I don't think so. He has been involved with this for months. He is I'd like to believe Woodward's story. You'd have to believe that the Glazers excluded Woodward from any of this for months, perhaps even years of planning. Crap planning, given the launch, but planning nonetheless.
Well, that I tell you what, that is not the crapness of the planning. Is evidence that Ed Woodward was involved, not evidence that he wasn't.
And there was, unnamed quotes of other CEOs in the Premier League saying, no, he was absolutely involved.
Yeah.
And in fact, driving it. So we'd have to believe that the Glazers left out their most trusted lieutenant. It doesn't make any sense. So, of course, Woodward knew. Of course, he was trying to push it through. He's gone because, he's rightly recognised, or most likely Joel Glazer has rightly recognised, that he has no credibility left after this collapse, because he has no ability to work with his peers in Premier League football or in UEFA. He'd already resigned from all the committees and the ECA and UEFA. So what can he do? I mean, he can manage his company, but the thing is, in sports, unlike many other businesses, you need to play against another team. You need to collaborate with your competitors all of the time. And so, it's completely untenable, his position. So that's why he had to go. Whether he's fired or he jumped, I don't know. But the bullshit spin that this is some kind of high-minded principle, forget it. As Harry Maguire might say, fucking idiot.
The thing is, like, you got the Battle of the Garys, right, where Gary Lineker's going, he's a man of integrity, and Gary Neville is quote tweeting the Sky story that he left because he loves, because he didn't believe in the ESL with just a family just a YouTube link, and when you click on it, it's just a family thought survey says, which is really enjoyable. You've got, like you said, you've got the other unnamed sources from within the other team saying this is absolutely nonsense, and exactly what you said. There's no way that any of these CEOs have a tenable position in the Premier League, and we are at the beginning of the fallout from this thing, and I think we should probably talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
One further piece of evidence that the idea that this was sprung on Woodward at the last minute seems far-fetched is that the current story that's coming out, although my God, who you believe when stories are coming out of Downing Street about who knew what, as the Cummings and Boris Johnson stuff suggests.
Are there any text messages between Woodward and Boris at all? They may come out.
Man United, this is from Caroline Wheeler on her Twitter account, because journalism is really bad now. They're saying Man United boss Ed Woodward met Dan Rosenfeld, the number 10 chief of staff, on Wednesday of last week. Rosenfeld is also a Man United fan. If you listen to this, Dan Rosenfeld, you're not welcome. Turn it off now.
Come on the show and explain yourself, and we want the receipts.
No way. I'm no platforming Tories on this show. The chief of staff of Boris Johnson's government is not coming on this show.
He can if he's got the dirt. I want the dirt.
You can't trust it. They're all self-interested liars. Anyway, number 10 claimed the meeting was to discuss the safe return of fans and COVID certification, but Rosenfeld is understood to have told Woodward that Downing Street would not stand in the way of the Super League plan. It is alleged that this was done without consulting the Prime Minister. Alleged by the Prime Minister, presumably, yes. Retrospectively, when it turned out to be unfavourable. Number 10 complained that the Super League was not raised at the meeting. Surprising, given the club's preparing plans under instructions from the CEOs from April the 13th, and club owners had wanted to launch the Super League on Thursday, April the 15th, but this was rejected by Liverpool, who didn't want to do it on the Hillsborough anniversary. Class from a Man United fan. Clap, clap, clap. Woodward went back to people planning the Super League and effectively said that the Prime Minister's chief of staff had given the project the green light. Positive noises from Downing Street were understood to have been communicated to those behind the Super League on the Saturday, and was apparently important in the final decision to launch. This has been denied by Ed Woodward. When the story broke on Sunday, and DCMS, Department for Culture, Media and Sport for our overseas listeners, went hard against the plans, Rosenfeld is understood to have intervened to get them to tone down the response. Apparently this was done in the form of emails. He also allegedly intervened to try to get Oliver Dowden, the
minister,
to tone down his statement. DCMS deny this and claim at no point did anyone try and persuade them to change their response. Boris Johnson is always said to have been against the plans. We have always been
famous football-loving Boris Johnson. Yes, I mean, Boris, who took an opportunity here to be populist, and he does have a good instinct for that, doesn't he? And I think that's why Boris came out so hard against it. I mean, the idea going along with this is, of course, the threat from Johnson. He was apparently prepared to drop a legislative bomb, quote unquote, on this, which would have been, I would say, challenging. So I have heard on other podcasts and read some opinions from people who look at competition law that would have been, a fairly significant rewrite of competition law, rather than a simple piece of primary legislation. So I don't know whether that really came with any teeth, but the idea that you could so thoroughly disrupt a leading light of the UK's soft power infrastructure, so thoroughly without number 10 giving it at least the implicit thumbs up is fanciful, isn't it? Of course they needed that go ahead, and of course that meeting had some discussion of Super League. I mean, again, does not pass the sniff test to say that it did not. Out of United and the other clubs involved is very high. Including from Señor Perez at Real Madrid, who did 3 interviews since we last recorded. Each one of them completely mental. I mean, what? my head was going, wow. So let's review the proposals from Perez.
He had done one by the time we recorded, because the 16 to 24 thing had already come out, because I made the point that 16 to 24-year-olds can't afford football. It's not, as we've seen at every single one of the protests that we've seen, there's been quite a lot of 16 to 24-year-olds.
Quite a lot of young people, not just
football.
Old fat guys.
No, exactly.
So that one, he also proposed, was it in that one or a later interview, shortening the game?
I think that was in the first one.
He's also said that the 12 clubs have signed binding contracts. Now, that's been rejected somewhat, so it may be that this is just a letter of intent. We'll see on that one. I imagine there are plenty of clauses in there that allow these teams to get out, because otherwise they wouldn't have pulled out so readily if they were about to be paying millions in penalty clauses. What else has he said? This is coming back. He's very confident. Yeah. As well as his suggestion that maybe it should just be the top four of the big leagues. Does France count as a big league in this? Because otherwise that would be 16 teams.
Yeah. He said the thing about how it's so weird that the rich clubs it can't be right that the rich clubs haven't got any money. No, you're right. You're right, Florentino. It cannot be right that a club that has the revenues of the scale of Real Madrid's and is currently they're refurbing the new camp. They're not adding any capacity to the new camp. They're just basically putting a roof on it.
Yeah,
on the Bernabeu. Sorry,
but new camp was supposed to be refurbished as well, and they've had some very fancy plans for about 4 years now, and haven't done it because they've got 1.2 billion euros worth of debt. I mean, it's insane. Yes, I mean, it's a while since I've done much accounting, but I can read a simple P&L, and when the number at the bottom is bigger than the number above it, it's got a problem.
Yeah, when Florentino, when Excel automatically turns one cell red, what that means is that's listen. There's the legendary tweet that's like, rent $500, food $250, bills whatever, candles $450 million a month. Somebody who's good at budgeting, please help me with this, my family are dying. And somebody did a version of that which had just like, instead of candles, had Eden Hazard 130 million. Could somebody who's good at budgeting help me, please, my football club is dying. Like, this is the most self-inflicted harm that's ever existed, the harm that Real Madrid and Barcelona are currently undergoing.
Yeah. And interestingly, it came out. Sorry to interrupt.
No, please do.
It came out that Real Madrid and Barcelona were going to get 15% more of the revenues from this project than the other founding clubs, which was interesting. They negotiated that and obviously believed their pool was bigger. Digging into the proposals, of course, and one of the reasons why they're so aggressive, it's not just that the 15 founders or 12 were going to share the spoils of this league and not have to share it with the other 32 clubs in the Champions League. It's that they were going to sell their own rights. Not for all the games, but for 3 of their home games per normal part of the season. Playoffs could be extra on top of that. And if you think, just do a back of an envelope sum on this, Manchester United, 1 billion fans around the world, just take some tiny percentage of them prepared to pay £5, dollars, euros, yen, or whatever to watch that or to subscribe in some platform somewhere. And it's huge money. I mean, it would dwarf in one game probably the entire broadcast revenue that United get currently. So you can kind of see why everyone was wetting their knickers over this one. It's just that's all they could see, the big piles of cash and nothing else.
And what's, I sorry for any retry. I didn't go back, and I should have meant to go back and listen to what we did on Tuesday to see what we'd covered and what we hadn't, because I don't remember a single word of that show, I have to say, because I was pretty tired when we did it. And also, I remember almost everything in every podcast I've ever listened to and almost nothing about any podcast I've ever done. It's a weird thing. Anyway, the nature of the alliance, I think, was just the thing that was most profoundly misunderstood. So, you said you made the little correction, 15 founder clubs. Oh, wait a minute, 12, because they all assumed that Dortmund and Bayern and PSG would be those other 3 founding clubs. But obviously they misunderstood the fact that the German clubs would never do this, because they just would never do it, because 50 plus 1. And maybe you could see Munich doing it. Dortmund? What's wrong with you people? And then it's just about misunderstanding soft power. So PSG's alliance lies with UEFA. That we definitely talked about on Tuesday. The Premier League is a massive. It's England's only soft power, basically. Don't really export television, not like the US does. Maybe a little bit music, maybe a little bit of the kind of the kind of cultural history stuff. But my God, the Premier League is it's not massive in terms of numbers. It's big in terms of numbers, but in terms of influence and making the country relevant, it's huge. So
well, we were talking in the WhatsApp group about the way the CIA gets involved in the arts industry as a way of exporting its power. Right? It's not always about using guns and shooting people. But the Premier League is recognised by billions of people around the world. It's apart from the arts and crafts in the arts and media industry that's been utterly decimated by the pandemic. It's the UK's best export. Not in terms of money, obviously that's financial services. But anyway, this had a really significant impact on the power structures. So the 12 are now booted out of all UEFA committees, and they all resigned, didn't they? And they're not involved in the European Club Association, and Paris Saint-Germain's Nasser Al Khelaifi is now the president of ECA. So Paris Saint-Germain and Bayern are now, they got the gamble correct, right, and the calculation correct. They are now super powerful in European circles in a way that United weren't really, but none of the other 12 are anymore, so interesting turn of events. And we haven't heard anything about punishments from UEFA or Premier League or anything, although we'll see whether everyone's very angry about this still, and apparently a lot of Premier League clubs lobbying for stuff to happen, probably not against clubs but probably against individuals, and we'll see whether that happens or not. There has to be consequences, otherwise this comes around next time the cycle's up for a renewal again in 3 years' time. It's going to come back in some form.
I think this is the thing. Miguel Delaney wrote a really interesting article about this, which was this was their nuclear weapon, and it's blown up in their face. Like this is the thing. Every 3 years, every cycle, it's like, well, UEFA, you better do what we want because otherwise, I'm so sorry, we'll have to go off and form a Super League. Next time, UEFA can be like, yeah, all right, mate, go and form a Super League, see how that goes.
But they got almost everything they wanted, right? So in terms of the reform of the Champions League, they will take more of the cash. It's now going to be a joint venture between the large clubs or the ECA and UEFA, and more of that money will flow up to the most successful teams, the highest ranked teams. What they didn't get was it completely closed and shared amongst 15 rather than 32, or it looks like 36. So,
but next time they're not getting everything they want because they don't have a bargaining chip anymore. This the fact that they got everything they wanted almost and still did this shows you how insane their hubris was, and that this isn't going to happen. Paris can talk about this coming around in 3 years' time. The unilateral rejection of this from every arena of politics and every arena of football, fans, broadcasters, print journalists, just every single power broker in football, apart from the people behind these 15 clubs, rejected this. It's not coming back. No way. And so, what they have done is massively disempower themselves. And basically, they've just lost a catastrophic battle against UEFA. Now, you talked about punishments. One of the things that happens a lot when I've seen a lot of discourse around this is it wouldn't be fair to punish the clubs in terms of points deductions, transfer bans, because the fans haven't done anything wrong, the players haven't done anything wrong, the staff haven't done anything wrong, playing staff. I mean, the coaches and stuff. That's not how football works. Like, every punishment ever, and I've seen it argued that, sometimes fans might have benefited from the ride that the clubs took that got them in trouble, but there's plenty of examples when no meaningful enjoyment was gained by fans, while clubs were bled dry by insidious people and went into administration, had massive points deductions, massive fines. Like, these clubs absolutely deserve huge points deductions. That's going into next season, they should start with a 20 points deduction each, basically.
Especially City, and Liverpool. So, unfortunately, I think we were the ringleaders.
Especially Man United.
There is a clause in the Premier League contract which has been much discussed about good faith. And clearly this was not in good faith, clearly. So I think there are grounds. It's just the calculation that the 14 who are having meetings without the other 6 at the moment have to make about how much, because they still got to be in a competition with these teams. And the calculation about whether this will stimulate another form of a breakaway to punish them too heavily, or what kind of disincentive they need, or have these clubs been so thoroughly embarrassed that no further punishment is needed? We'll see, and we may see more over the summer. And there's not much else to talk about other than how the 14 are going to get revenge on the 6.
But the thing is, if this happens, there'll be loads of United fans going, "This is so unfair. It's disgusting. They can't believe they did this to us," and that won't be the right take. I would get the emotion of that take, but also, by the way, like, if you took 20 points off all of these people, one of them's probably still going to win the league. Most likely. Maybe you'd get a Leicester winning the league, maybe, or a West Ham. The other thing that I think is absolutely crazy is Perez thinking that he had this rock solid alliance, and I guess that he must have assumed, that's why he keeps blathering on about it, he must have assumed that the paperwork really was rock solid, because why he would have thought, well, I think it's because he wouldn't have thought about it, but why he would have thought that Man City, whose entire existence is, as in its current form, is predicated on good PR, would have participated in something that was universally hated if it turned out it was universally hated.
Yes, I mean, this is why the planning is so poor. I mean, what we've seen nothing of. We've seen some contrition right afterwards. The kind of wooden statement from Fenway.
I was going to come on to talk about this exactly next.
Yeah, the hostage video he did and sort of apologising for it. We've had the PR written statement from Joel Glazer, which was completely disingenuous and spin in the papers, pointing out that Abramovich was embarrassed by what had happened, and you talked about City, so we had a little bit, but the idea that they were going to cause this such massive disruption, they had the arrogance and the hubris to not even go sell it. The thought that they could do this and then we don't even have to talk to our stakeholders, politicians, broadcasters, players, fans. We're well down the list, aren't we? And not even put up a spokesperson during the week to try and defend it. I mean, it's incredible hubris. Anyway, so we're not going to get it for now. What we are going to get is a reformatted Champions League, and I think it's going to be a much worse product. And although this has been agreed, and the thing you get when you have a committee of clubs trying to agree something is not always the best solution. We're going to get the Swiss model, much talked about. It looks like we'll get 10 guaranteed games. We may even retain that round of 16 game as well. So it could be 4 extra games for anyone who gets through to the knockout stages, and which is basically the death knell for the League Cup, or it'll be under 23 sides in the League Cup. And so there's going to be a lot of teams at the bottom of those groups, or near the bottom of that league, playing each other in completely meaningless games. And so there's going to be a lot of over 100 more games a season in the Champions League, but a lot of dross.
Ilkay Gundogan tweeting his kind of dislike of that particular. Turns out if you have got your phone in your hand and you say Ilkay Gundogan, it thinks you're saying OK Google, which is not what I was saying. But anyway, he tweeted complaining about it. But I wanted to come back to the Joel Glazer apology, because from a United perspective, I guess this is the most significant thing really in the kind of we should talk about the. Let's do this in order. Joel Glazer on the Wednesday, I think, said, over the past few days, blah, 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 we've witnessed a great passion which football generates and the deep loyalty our fans have for this great club. Blah, we got it wrong. Or we demonstrated your very clear opposition and we have listened. We got it wrong and we want to show we can put things right. This is the paragraph. Although the wounds are raw and I understand it will take time for the scars to heal, I'm personally committed to rebuilding trust with our fans and learning from the message you delivered with such conviction. Now, first of all, his brother was then doorstepped by a Mirror journalist and refused to apologise. So let's get this straight. If you want to know the level of actual contrition here, I did think it was significant that he was rattled enough to put this letter out under his name. I nearly said to write this letter, which is a different thing altogether. It's the first time we've heard from him since 2005. Yeah. And my man is out.
No. We did, to be fair, we did hear a little bit. When they IPO'd,
Oh, yeah.
A little bit. Yeah,
Not to the fans, though.
Not to the fans.
There was no communication to the fans. That was just communication to investors. Fans haven't heard from them since 2005. And this man is out here saying, rebuilding trust.
Well, now, I tell you what, look, it's not going to be everything, but Haaland, Sancho, Bellingham in the summer, it might go a little way to rebuilding my trust.
Rebuilding. This man does not know what rebuild is. Do you know what the in rebuilding implies? It implies that once upon a time there was trust. Now, I don't know if you remember every single fan in the stadium chanting, wishing death upon your father, Joel Glazer, or chanting about you personally being attacked, thrown on a bonfire, hit with hammers. What about that suggested that there was trust? What about in 2010, the thousands of United fans marching to the game singing, we want Glazers out, said we want Glazers out, with Gill and Glazer's pickpockets on a giant banner, pick P-I-K, right? These people are deluded. Like, you rebuilt jelly and ice cream when Glazer dies. That's what Man United fans. I'm not saying I like that, by the way. I'm not saying I enjoy wishing death upon people. I'm just saying.
Which flavour of ice cream did you have? Cookie dough for me. It was good.
The thing about it is the level of the sheer disgusting delusion of this. Now, what then came as a consequence, partly as a consequence of this statement, was that the morning after that, on essentially Man United's first day of actual training all season, which is probably slightly unfortunately timed for various reasons, a group of protesters arrived at Carrington and had a frank discussion with Ole.
Frank but civilised.
Absolutely.
Unlike some reporting on this, Yeah. This was peaceful, and it was a discussion with Ollie and Matic.
Yeah, Carrick, Matic, Fletcher, which Matic was clearly maybe doing some coaching or whatever, because this was the coaching group. And, there's a few funny behind-the-scenes things that we heard about. And Ole said, he said Joel loves the club, and this was a kind of rabbit in the headlights moment, and I don't think too much needs to be read in that. And generally speaking, he was sound. He appreciated the kind of concerns of the supporters and all that stuff. Now, he's a company man, and he's not going to come out and say these owners are despicable leeches, even though, he made his feelings pretty clear during the time of the takeover. He was one of us rather than one of them. But now he's, his position in that is a little more murky. There was a protest yesterday outside Old Trafford. A very decent number of people there. Lots of social media footage doing the rounds of that. Some remarkable photos, lots of green and gold everywhere, and there's a sense of momentum. And I think next week there's going to be a much better organised, much bigger. Because this was obviously United were away, weren't they, this weekend? But there's the home game against Liverpool next weekend, and I think there's going to be a fairly massive protest for that one.
As there was at Arsenal. I mean, it was Chelsea fans, wasn't it, that came out first because they had a home game as this came out last Sunday. Arsenal fans en masse at the Emirates protesting. We've seen protests at Liverpool. I don't know, have we seen any City fans? I think they're happy with their lot, aren't they, City? And I'm sure next weekend will be a really big protest. And I hope it is, because you know what? It works. It works to a certain extent. Now, I don't think, despite a few stories floated in the media, I don't think the Glazers are on the cusp of selling the club and the government. I will, eat my hat and anything else you want if the government legislated for 50+1. So I think there are limits to what can be achieved. But it's that voice and using the momentum that fans have right now is really important. So I hope it's a huge protest. So COVID safe, wear your masks, people.
Which is very different from the message being put out by Red Issue, but that's a whole nother conversation. The government have initiated a review led by an MP who I heard on Football Ramble, I think it was, is either a qualified referee or qualified football coach, certainly somebody who knows football anyway. That's going to, I suspect, be probably quite in-depth and might bring about some recommendations for actual changes in the fitting. I read a list of the kind of, what's it called, the parameters of that. Not the parameters, there's another word. But anyway, the things they're going to be looking at. The scope, exactly, the scope of that review. And it does look interesting. And the 50+1 thing will be discussed by, I suggest that it seems unlikely in our hyper-capitalist system that that's going to happen. It would be phenomenal, and it would be an easy win for the government because, football is small, big business. So the government could actually afford to take a kind of, much like American sports, in the most kind of capitalist country on earth, the sports are run like a socialist utopia, of equality. They could, mind you, the ownership is not running a socialist utopia. But anyway, it's possible that would be an easy win for the government if they were to do that. So we had the Red Knights sending an open letter back to Joel Glazer saying basically, okay, now reduce your family's share. If you want to rebuild trust, reduce your family's share to no more than 49.99%, and also sell us the shares at a discount in an act of good faith. I'm like, yeah. All right, lads. Well, worth a go, isn't it? Worth a go.
Chances, yeah. Trying to jib their way into owning the club. Yeah, good one.
Yeah. And what I would say is, you said protest works, and it clearly has in this case. What does protest achieve at United? Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't protest. I'm saying what's the victory condition? Because the win state here is the Glazers leave, and we end up with less despicable ownership. Now, of course, the Glazers are talking about the company being worth. There was a leak today that they want $4 billion for United. You had a look at some of the numbers there, Ed, in terms of the amount that they're currently generating and whether it's worth $4 billion to buy United.
Yeah. Well, it's not. So the market, that would be about 40% over current market cap. So you would get a goodwill premium for a takeover for sure. And if there was a serious buyer out there, you'd see that in the numbers. And the market hasn't responded to any of that at the moment because there's not a serious buyer out there. And the yield the company produces is very, very small. This is not a good investment. It's a sort of holds as a portfolio of stuff, being a fairly safe bet because it's a couple of dollars up on IPO. So you make more money on that than sticking it in government bonds or under your mattress. But, an index fund would have produced twice the value or more than twice the value, in fact. So, this isn't a great investment. 4 billion isn't much. There's plenty of private equity funds that hold lots more assets under management than this. But it's kind of, what do we get next? For a kind of benevolent dictator model of some kind of probably Middle East prince owning United for a soft power play, or a tech billionaire as a trophy asset, are they going to be better? Maybe not. And if it is private equity, then they'll be running the club much like other private equity groups that got into football recently, and there's quite a few. They'll be running it to make a profit. So we might not like that either.
Yeah. So, I mean, and fan ownership is not utopia. Like, fan ownership is hugely complex and Schalke have just gone down, an absolute shambles of a club. I mean, Barcelona are, effectively, the socios elect the president of Barcelona, and I mean, it's a bit like the British Constitution, right, where you elect the prime minister. Well, you don't elect the prime minister, but you elect the party, and then if they've got a majority, they can literally do what they like for 5 years. There's a bit like that in Barcelona, I guess.
Yes, and that's not always good, is it? As we found out, and those who are currently residing behind bars have found out too.
Yeah, but. So, there aren't simple answers to this. So what is the win condition for protesting? What are we looking for? If we're
some
saying
kind of meaningful say, at least, look, if Tracy Crouch's review, she's the who's leading this this group, former sports minister, and fairly sensible for a Tory. The limits on that sense. But if it comes out with something that is like, well, clubs must have a forum, or it's recommended they have a forum, or some kind of nonsense, right, where the clubs have to roll this out once a year to appease the fans, and people get a bit shouty for a bit, but nothing serious happens. That's kind of the whole review is a waste of time. Then what the big clubs don't want, of course, is the thing they fear. Perhaps even more than some kind of golden share system, 50+1, or some kind of fans on board system, is an independent regulator who would be there to level the playing field. Right, that's what you get in all industries where you have a regulator. It's to make sure it's fair for consumers, for producers, for the ecosystem of businesses, whatever it is. Right, and in this case, they would say, well, football as a whole industry makes X amount of money, but 95% of it goes to the biggest clubs. That doesn't look very fair to me. We'll redistribute in some way. And so that's what the big clubs will be trying to avoid most of all, because in United's case, that reduces United's profitability. And for some of the other clubs, it will reduce their ability to spend and produce the kind of thing that's given them all this great PR, right? So, you asked what the win state is. The win state clearly is some kind of meaningful representation with teeth. I would be astonished, as I said, if something akin to 50+1 comes in. I don't think you can retroactively fit that onto football. In fact, we talked on the last podcast a lot about history of the game. That's never been a state in English football. So it'd be very hard to then go and impose it, much as we might like it, So we'll see. But something that gives consultation to fans as a minimum, and meaningful consultation, I hope that's something that comes out of here. Yeah, but for it to have teeth, it has to have legislation behind it, and there's no talk of that right now.
Yeah, and what does it even look like? I guess one of the things that happened in 2010, there's been a lot of footage doing the rounds from the protests in 2010. There were massive protests in 2005 when the leverage buyout happened, and then protests sort of bubbled away. And then in 2010, basically they refinanced the debt in a big way. They took out these PIK loans, they heaping more and more debt, and those PIK loans were so dangerous. And we covered this at length at the time on the show. And there was a massive new wave of protest, and that was when the Green and Gold campaign began. Green and Gold till the club is sold. The Glazers didn't take a dividend. The TV rights happened. The debt was refinanced in a much more sustainable way, and those protests went quite quiet, especially since United won the league a lot and won the Champions. I mean, they won the Champions League in 2008, and the protests were in 2010. So, but there was this sort of enough success around and enough money being spent on players, I think, sadly, to sort of keep the keep the debate just in the background, just lots of angry voices not being heard and lots of people just kind of getting on with their lives. Really, the kind of then the meaningful anti-Glazer sentiment has been, I'm talking about on the mass scale. I'm not talking about people who have been activists the whole way through, has really coincided with bad transfer windows for the most part and been really kind of like not doing any of us any favours. I mean, we've seen in the last 2 years the letters LUHG be co-opted by a bunch of weird Mourinhoistas. Like, has gone really weird in the last couple of years. And, people with that little green and gold symbol in their Twitter name, that's kind of been synonymous with "We hate Ollie Solskjaer" in the last 2 years, which is absolutely crazy compared to what it used to mean. So it's all got quite muddy and quite ineffective. But hopefully this will bring a new energy behind a movement to actually get these owners out of our club.
Yeah. So look, I think mass protests help control or co-opt the media narrative, right? So that's one aim. The review with the sports minister or former sports minister is slightly different, and I think organised fans groups like the Supporters Trust, whether you like them or not, and whether you agree with leadership or not, is the route this has to go through. So organised representation of a community's views, and there'll be an opportunity to present evidence. Written and probably in person, and that is the route, and that's how. And organising that in a super professional way will be how you influence government. Mass protests will hog the back pages, and that's important. And it might not shift the Glazers to sell because they're in Tampa and they couldn't give a toss, And as we saw with Avram Glazer this week, it just doesn't matter to him. He sold 100 million or trying to sell 100 million pounds worth of United shares, those without any voting rights, because he just needs the money for I don't know what, his lifestyle.
New trousers.
He could new trousers and a bloody haircut. I mean, why a man with almost no hair decides to have a wispy ponytail at the back? I mean, he looks
because he has only no. I mean, there's a
but it's like it's nasty. He looks like if you said, what does a scrotum look like in human form? He looks like that, Tom, producer Tom, bit of a red top. He's got a fire crotch or a frotch, as it's known in the business. Check out Tom's ball sack. Avram Glazer separated at birth.
Wow, you've just ruined the show. Anyway, I'm just
it's a podcast, so you have to create the vision, don't you?
Yeah, well,
you're thinking about it now, though.
You've done much too good a job at creating the vision, and I hate it. And not even sponsored by well-known grooming company, whose name I'm not going to mention because they're not giving us any money. Never did, by the way. Just product. Anyway, that whole arena of ownership, we'll be covering this as it goes on, and it's going to run, and the opposition to the Glazers at various different points has been about the very existence of Manchester United as an institution. Right now, it's about it's existential in a cultural sense. Like it's if Manchester United is to exist, what does it mean? And we absolutely cannot, as a collective, accept it being part of the worst group of clubs in football. I mean, it is anyway, but not to this extent. Not to being so greedy that their vast personal wealths aren't enough. They want more vast personal wealth and more power and more influence and more and more and more and more, and they don't deserve any of it. And it's heartening that they didn't get this. So a team that wasn't involved, but could theoretically have been at various points in the 90s or 2000s, was Roma. And should we take a quick break at an hour into the show and come back and talk about Roma? So Roma then. Bella Roma. Have you ever seen Rome Open City?
No.
It's like a neo-realist 1940s film that was made on like stock that was reclaimed from propaganda film libraries and stuff. It's a fantastic film about the opposition to the resistance against the Nazi Party in Rome. Phenomenal. Well, like, you know, when people recommend olden days classics and you're like, oh, don't think I can face an olden days classic today. It's one of those where it's like, no, it's just a really good film. So anyway, where are they in Serie A? That's the key question.
They're seventh, and they, with a mixed bag of results, one win in their past 5 Serie A games. It looks like they're going to...
Are we giving them credit for mixed results with one win in their last 5 Serie A? Isn't that bad results?
Well, look, they're seventh. It looks like they're going to miss out on European football, so they are currently 8 points behind Napoli, and Napoli have a game in hand in the search for a UEFA Cup spot. I mean, I guess there is, since European football was not annihilated, there will be the Europa Conference that they may be able to get into. I mean, halfway down the big leagues will get a spot in the Europa Conference, so maybe they're chasing that glory. But they're definitely not going to make the Champions League. 11 points behind Juve now, and Daniel Fonseca, the manager, young manager, almost certainly going to get the boot in the summer. He has a clause in his contract that says his contract gets renewed if they make the Champions League. It's not going to happen. So this is the last shot at glory for him, and we'll see. I think United should have too much quality, clearly, given their sort of respective results this season. But Roma have got this far in the competition. They do have some, decent players, including Chris Smalling, assuming he's recovered from rather traumatic break-in at his house in the past week or so.
So they lost today to Cagliari in spite of fielding a reasonably strong side. Their top scorer in the in Serie A this season is Henrik Mkhitaryan, who has 9 goals and 8 assists. He's their most creative and important player by miles and miles and miles. And if your most important player is Henrik Mkhitaryan, then it's likely that your results are going to be flaky, because he sure is a flaky player to have as a talisman. He's been much less successful in their European campaign. I wonder if some of that is just down to him playing less in the European games. In fact, he only has like 400 odd minutes in the Europa League this season, and to put that in comparison, their Europa League goalkeeper has almost 1,000 minutes in the competition. Their top scorer in Europe this season has been Borja Mayoral.
They're forward.
Yeah, who is a Spanish forward, and then Edin Dzeko has been banging him in. He has 7 goals in the league and 4 in the Europa League. 35-year-old Edin Dzeko. So it's not like they haven't got some threats to United, but you would imagine. I haven't seen them kick a ball this season, but you would imagine, given the kind of players that we're talking about, that on their day United will have easily more than enough. But the question becomes, is the semi-final thing really a thing? Because we have never played well under Ole Solskjaer in a semi-final of any competition.
No, and it's the thing I was starting to talk about earlier. What approach do United take to this? I mean, is Ole going to take the risk of going all out? I mean, the first game is at Old Trafford. Are United going to play with 2 in a double pivot at Old Trafford in a semi-final, and then be under pressure for the return leg next week? And I think that is going to make a big difference. United can take this by the scruff of the neck. I mean, Roma were decent actually against Ajax, and it's a decent Ajax side, not a great one, obviously. So I think we get a good benchmark about their level. They clearly do have trouble scoring. Mayoral, Dzeko, both single figures. Vertu has scored from midfield this season as well. And so, that's their challenge and why they've got that mixed bag of results. But they're not coming into this with great form. They got through the quarterfinal on the basis of their strong showing in Amsterdam rather than the second leg. And, Ajax had some really good opportunities in that second leg too. So, I think United can afford to be fairly bold in this one and go for it, which would be, Pogba in the side, but not at the expense of, say, Greenwood, presuming that Cavani starts, so we go with the front three of Rashford, Cavani, Greenwood and Pogba in the centre of midfield. Will that happen?
It's a really good question. I wonder. I don't know. The thing is, we're at the point now where if you play Pogba on the left, you got to assume Cavani is nailed on to start, given that he didn't start this game, and he's got top level experience and all these kinds of things. I mean, all these players have got some pretty high level experience of these kind of games, but I really don't know. I mean, you'd hope in a way that he'd play Pogba alongside McTominay or Fred, and then he would play Fernandes, Rashford, Cavani, and Greenwood as a front four. I just think it's very unlikely. I just don't think it's very likely. And I think if Greenwood had scored today, he'd have done himself no harm. And the fact that Greenwood didn't play brilliantly today, didn't play badly, and his movement was actually pretty good, and he's been in really good form generally lately, I'd be more confident that he'd be playing. But you think Pogba's definitely going to start. Cavani's definitely going to start. Rashford and Bruno are definitely going to start. And I'm sure the defence will be De Gea, because for some reason now you don't pick your number one goalkeeper in semi-finals. Just you play.
Yes, this is now the important tournament, Ollie.
Yeah, but no, that's that. Sergio Romero played the semi-final, the final of the Europa League a few years ago, and I'm sure it's going to be De Gea. But Shaw will play, and it will be Lindelof and Maguire, and it will be Wan-Bissaka. I'm going to guess that he's going to play McFred, Pogba, Cavani, Rashford. That's my guess.
Yes, and I think that's probably most likely. But in that, there's two big compromises: Rashford on the right, which he doesn't enjoy as much because he can't cut inside and shoot, and McFred in the middle, which means United's passing from the centre of the park isn't very vertical. There's not a lot of progression there, and it causes all sorts of problems. Which means that all the creativity has to come through Bruno, which means you've got one man to mark. And you can see a situation where Roma defend and break in that first game, and United could struggle a bit.
Yeah, and I said that they played a fairly strong team today, but I'd say they definitely made more changes than United. More of an eye on Thursday than United had in their team selection, where it was really just Pogba and Cavani who were properly rested ahead of Thursday. So
yeah, they didn't. Is Nicolo Zaniolo fit or not? I'm not sure because he didn't play today, did he? And he's their sort of big hope, a player who could go for a lot of money in the summer market. Well, pandemic lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, Mkhitaryan didn't. I've lost the lineup now. But Mkhitaryan, what was the name of the player you were asking about, Ed? Sorry.
Nicolo Zaniolo.
No, he did not play. So yeah, I think it's really hard to predict what I mean. The fact that it's two-legged makes a difference. I guess you're more likely to lean to conservative over two legs, right? Do you know whether the first leg is at home or away? I haven't looked this up.
Yeah, first leg's at Old Trafford.
Okay, I mean it doesn't make that much difference, but it does in terms of like away goals and stuff like that, and the shape of the tie changes in.
Yeah. Away goals in this season seems nonsense. It seems like a rule they could have got rid of, and especially when you've had some teams go through on away goals where both legs of the two-legged tie have been at no one's home.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, I guess you got to find a way that's. They might as well just toss a coin at that point.
Yeah,
I suppose.
So this is going to be, do United show up? If United show up, I don't think this is hubris. I think if United show up, they've got too much for Roma, because this is the second best team in the Premier League against the 7th best team in Serie A. So there's no two ways about it. We should have enough. It's just that I'm not confident at all that they're going to show up. That's the thing, because we got this,
because they never have in semi-finals under Oli.
Exactly, and Sevilla last season, United really played well in some of those games. That just didn't have the kind of killer instinct and the cutting edge. And you hope they've learned as a kind of group, and that they've got a bit more about them. And we've seen certainly a revived Luke Shaw could be a massive difference in a game like this. And there's a lot of reason to have hope. I think that Burnley game showed that there's a lot of spirit in this United side. When their backs against the wall, we almost need to go behind early. That's almost what we need to kind of, not necessarily in this leg, but I don't know, if we're sort of one goal behind after 20 minutes of the away leg, I'll be feeling super confident. I guess that even though it is Liverpool, that'll just be an afterthought, right? That game.
Well, at the moment, it's not the most important of these two ties, just because where United are in the league. So I can't imagine even he'll play his full side or his strongest side on Thursday, obviously, and then Liverpool, they'll just all be burnt out, I imagine, for that one. So against the Liverpool side, chasing a Champions League place unsuccessfully at the moment, given that they dropped some points very, very late against Newcastle. Which was quite amusing. I don't know if you had a chuckle. I had quite a long chuckle at that one.
34% they're down to. 34% on the old...
Their share of the Super League revenue. No,
Chelsea at 61%, boringly, on 538. Poor old West Ham. Now 3 points behind Chelsea. It's looking...
Not looking good for them. No. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't really predict what kind of lineup it will be or what kind of performance we'll get against Liverpool. It's, Liverpool honestly need it more. Absolutely. Maybe it means more to them.
This means more. That's, oh my God. We've talked about it from a United perspective, but the fact that, Liverpool's whole shtick, Klopp, by the way, coming out yesterday, giving it the old... You lost, move on. No, you won, move on. It's done now. That's fine. It's fine. It's not happening. What are you doing? What are you doing? I'd be saying the same if this was Solskjaer. Solskjaer has not covered himself in glory, but he has got a few easy wins of I was really against this. I thought it was terrible. Sport's got to be sport. It's easy now, innit? Easy now, innit, brother? It's dead in the water. But,
yes.
But I thought it was really badly misguided from Klopp to come out and say
he's totally said he's missed the tone completely. I mean, he's come across as very tone deaf.
Yeah,
I think first having to go at Gary Neville and then yes, basically shut up and dribble, and it's all done now. We can all move on. No, it's not done now, and we are angry and protest matters. So. But he got rattled by all of this. It was interesting, and he was obviously dumped in it. He didn't know anything about it, and he was one of the first to get questions from the media, and he probably feels like he's been thrown under the bus. He just wants it all behind him, which it's not.
No.
And I hope we can heap misery on him by beating his side and knocking them out of contention for the Champions League. I hope that West Ham. And Everton also do well in the next 5 games, and Liverpool end up in the Europa Conference. I would enjoy that. I don't know what are they going to play that on Thursday nights, or is it even more ignominious?
Friday nights. Alex Telles scoring a hat-trick. That's what's happening in that game, because he's the only player I'm confident. There are 3 players that I'm confident will be on the team sheet. Although I think Maguire might have picked up a booking that means he's going to not play this game. But if that hasn't happened, then Alex Telles, Maguire, and Fernandes. These are the 3 players that are definitely going to play against Liverpool. It's worth saying, you mentioned shut up and dribble, which brings us to the topic of the racial abuse of footballers. Now, it has been widely observed that the level of energy and dedication and protest and unified objection and all of this to the European Super League has not necessarily been in evidence with the same ferocity of energy behind it when it comes to dealing with the rampant resurgence of racism in football. I do think there is a reason for that beyond the relative lack of care, to do with the complexity, to do with the relentless, to do with like not having one easy target to focus all your energy on. I think that's
right.
part of the reason. But worth saying that the entirety of the Premier League and Football League clubs, and I think players too, are boycotting all social media platforms next weekend. I mean, I'm more than happy to join them in that, because an excuse not to participate in social media. But it's an interesting move. I mean, lots of people have decried it as tokenism. I suppose I understand why people have decried it as tokenism, but I also think it's a fairly significant token gesture. It's quite a big deal.
I think so. It's we talked about where protest works, where it's narrowly focused, and I think one of the challenges with dealing with this narrow topic of racism in football and the football community, and it directed at in particular players, is that who you're protesting against, and so that was easy to find the enemy with the Super League stuff. It's been a very long time coming. We should say that, this is at least an organised effort to put pressure on social media companies. Right? It's not going to solve the societal problems. It's not a systemic solution. What it's saying is, you social media companies can and must do more if you want our patronage as fans and as clubs and as brands. Because that's one of the reasons why people come to your platforms and how you make money through advertising. And boycotts of media in all its form in the past does put pressure on media to do the right thing. So I don't know whether this will get Twitter to improve its algorithm or police its platform more. None of these companies want to do it, and it's partly about resourcing and money, but mostly it's that they want to be seen as neutral hosts that are not the publishers and therefore are not responsible. And in fact, legally in the US, they are. Section 220 of the Telecommunications Act, says that they are not responsible for the content on their networks, unlike a telecommunications company. So. And they want to retain that as much as possible. They are trying to have their cake and eat it, of course, by also at the same time saying, we're doing even more. And we got AI algorithms that take content down and that kind of stuff. And, try posting a goal from the Premier League and that gets zapped in about 3 seconds, doesn't it? So, I don't know whether this will have an impact, but it is something. Football community organised to do something.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there is this constant cynical need to shout down any protest as not enough. And I saw somebody tweet about the protests, the United fans outside Old Trafford. Some of them are just doing it for clicks. And I kind of want to say at this point, don't worry about it. Let some people do it for clicks. By the way, those people serve the ends of the protest, because those clicks are happening, raising some awareness of the protest, probably supportive of the process. Don't worry if some people get some social media clout out of it. A lot of people that are being accused of only doing it for social media clout probably care passionately about the club and only do United social media stuff because it's their dream to cover United and they're doing it from a fan's perspective. Like, let's not fight each other. Let's not get super people's front of Judean people's front about all of this.
Yes, there doesn't need to be a purity test.
No,
and none of these are silver bullets for sure. Solving either the problem of greedy owners and the problems in the structure of football or racism in our game, not going to solve the problem. But I don't care if there are a bunch of fan cams at the protest yesterday, and it wasn't the kind of official, organised big thing. So what? It's coverage. It's keep the momentum going. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
We've spent an hour of our last 3 podcasts talking about it. Yeah, we've been talking about ESL for clicks, Paul. We're part of the problem.
Another thing doing the rounds this week, TalkSport had Robbie from Arsenal Fan TV on ostensibly to talk about this issue, and Ray Parlour starts going, "Oh, you're just trying to make money out of Arsenal losing," and it just kind of brings up the debate once again about like fan channels like it when their teams lose because they get more revenue, and these people have never seen our CMS back end. If you think that fan coverage gets more gets more attention when your team loses, you want to see our numbers, bro. Like, it's not how it works. Anyway, all that being said, we have to do the thing that we have to do on the show. We have to make a prediction for the score of these 2 games, even though one of them is so heavily dependent on the other one that we can't even begin to imagine what the starting lineup will be like. But let's do it.
I'm going to say 1-0 to United on Thursday night against Roma, and 0-0 versus Liverpool.
I am going to say, oh dear, I've just worked out what I'm going to say and it's bad. But I'm going to say we're going to beat Roma comfortably. I'm going to go with a 2-0 win over Roma, and finally a good showing in the semi-final. And then unfortunately, I think that a Liverpool team that needs to win against a United team that has almost nothing riding on it between 2 legs of a European semi-final, I think that's going to be a Liverpool win. So I'll say 2-1 to them. Boo.
Boo. Hopefully we just get a 97th minute penalty or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be ideal. A massive protest, though, that's what we want to see. If you are able to go safely, look after yourselves, look after the people around you, those things. Yeah. And, pick up your litter as well, because Old Trafford was absolutely trashed after the thing on Saturday. But anyway, take good care. And just a quick word. I know we have lots of people listening to the show in India where things are super duper rough. We're sending lots and lots of love to you guys, and stay safe, and do all the smart stuff and don't do the dumb stuff.
Yes, I echo that.
Yeah.
Stay safe if you're going to the protests or wherever you are around the world, and we'll speak to you next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Much love, everyone.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.